Hi guys, welcome to the JavaScript course. We have come to the most interesting aspect of the JavaScript course, which is DOM manipulation. So the concept that we have learned in our previous class and the ones we are going to learn afterwards, we are going to be using it in this topic. So let us go straight in. So we are going to build another folder in our JavaScript class, and we are going to call it week 7. So week 7 now, yeah, week 7 class 2. Week 7 class 2. So we are going to, I'm going to move what I have here. I'm going to move it to this, to move it here, and also I'm going to create another folder, another file, and I'm going to call it, let me just make it dom.js. I've been using script.js since, so let's make it dom.js, and we have this. So what I'm going to do, let us link our DOM file, our JavaScript file. So that would be script source, so dom.js. Alright, so let's move on. Now let us look at DOM manipulation. What exactly is DOM manipulation? What exactly it is? Don't mind the word, it might look like a big word, but it is quite simple. It's one of the most interesting aspects, or one of the most interesting topic or aspect in JavaScript, because now we are going to be working with the interface of the browser. We are not going to be using the console.log, though we are going to be using that, but majorly our work is going to be on the browser's interface. Okay, alright, let's move on. What is DOM manipulation? First of all, let us talk about DOM. The DOM stands for Document Object Model. DOM is a platform and a language neutral interface that allows programs and scripts to dynamically access and update the content, structure, and styles of a document. So, simply put, it is an interface that allows developers to interact and control the elements of the web. So that's the essence of DOM. It is actually an interface that allows developers to interact and control the elements of the web. And how do we do that? The DOM acts as an interface between document and JavaScript. So using DOM plus JavaScript, developers can access and modify each and every element of the document using DOM. So there are three types of DOM. Of course, now you have an idea of what DOM simply means. It's actually an interface that allows developers to interact and control elements of the web. So that is the essence of DOM. And it simply means Document Object Model. Alright, so let us look at the different types of DOM that we have. We have the core DOM, we have the XML DOM, and we have the HTML DOM. But our focus in this class is on HTML DOM. So what exactly is HTML DOM? HTML DOM simply means is a standard model for HTML documents. So now this is what it means. When a web page is loaded, the browser, so whatever browser that you are using, the browser creates a document object model of the page. Please listen. When a page loads, a web page loads on the browser, the browser creates a document object model of what? Of that page. The HTML document model is constructed as a tree of objects. So with the HTML DOM, JavaScript can access and change all the elements of an HTML document. So what this is what it simply means, that when your web page loads on the browser, so what the browser does is to create a document object model of that page, a DOM of that page. So in that document object, there are a lot or tons of properties and methods that we can use to be able to access and change and style all the elements of an HTML document. So if you look at the structure here, this is how the structure looks like. First of all, once your page loads, it creates an HTML document. So this is the document that we have here. So this is the HTML document. So all the elements that you have in your HTML document, you have it in the browser too. So the DOM actually allows you or gives you the ability to be able to style, to change, to access, and to modify any elements in your HTML document. So that's the essence. So this is what we have. So let us look at what we can do with these elements using JavaScript. What we can do with this HTML document object model, these elements, what can we do with it with JavaScript? Number one, we can use JavaScript to change and to add nodes in the document. We can use JavaScript to change and to add nodes in the document. We are going to look at node very soon. JavaScript can add or change style of the DOM elements. So we can add style or change the style of the DOM element in JavaScript, not in CSS. So JavaScript can set new attributes to the DOM element and can remove and modify older attributes. JavaScript can add new elements in the DOM structure. JavaScript can create and add events to the DOM element. JavaScript can delete elements from the DOM tree. So what exactly is node in HTML? From what we have here, that JavaScript can change and add nodes in the DOM, that's document object model. So what exactly is nodes in HTML DOM? So the DOM comprises different types of nodes. Each node in the DOM tree is identified by a node type. So we have different types of node in the HTML document object model. We have the element nodes, we have the attribute nodes, we have the text node, and we have the comment node. So look at what we have here. So different types of node. Node, document, that is the HTML document, is also a node. Then we have the character data, meaning the text, the content of the HTML element is also what? A text node, or we can also have a comment node too. So everything, perhaps every element in your HTML is actually called node. Are you with me? Every element, including the document, is actually called what? Node. So we have different types of node as stated there: the document node, the character data node, the element node, and what? And the attribute node. The character data node is subdivided into two: the text and the comment node. So everything in your HTML document object model is a node. The element is a node. Even the comment, whatever you comment, is also a node. The text is a node. So the HTML element is a node. The HTML document is also what? A node as well. You know, when we talk about HTML element, look at the example we have here. Can you see HTML head element, HTML body element, HTML title element, HTML paragraph element, HTML input element, HTML table element, and the list goes on and on. So all the elements that we have in HTML, they they are called node elements, node HTML elements in document object model. So that's the meaning of what node. So from this case now, in this case, it says JavaScript can change and add nodes in the DOM. So it can add any kind, it can add or change any kind of node in the DOM. It could be an element node, it could be a text node, it could be a comment node, it could be an attribute node. So do you get that now? Very simple. So HTML DOM methods and property. Let us look at HTML DOM method and property. Actually, in this class, this is an introduction to DOM manipulation, document object model. So in our next class and going forward, we are going to be going deeper and deeper into this topic. So HTML DOM methods and property. Methods and property. Methods, these are actions you perform on HTML elements, such as adding or deleting or accessing an HTML element. I repeat, methods are actions that you perform on HTML elements, such as adding or deleting or accessing an HTML element. And let us look at property as well. Properties, these are values of HTML elements that you can set or change. I repeat, these are values of HTML elements that you can set or what? Change. So we are going to look at these methods and properties as we continue in this class. So the document object represents your web page. Please take note of that. The document object represents what? Your web page. Your web page. Your web page. The document object represents what? Your web page. Please hold on. All right, welcome back. So the document object represents your web page. The document object represents your web page. The document object represents your web page. Let's say, for example, all right, I'm coming. Let me open this on my browser. So this is what I have here. This simple web page. This simple web page. Just all about, they are all text actually. So let us see the document object of our web page here. You can see we have where is it now? So we have this. So all of these here. So you can see that the browser already creates what? The document, creates the document object model of this web page. Like I said earlier, that when your web page loads on the browser, what the browser does is to create an HTML document object model of that web page. So through that document object, you can use JavaScript with DOM to manipulate the elements of the HTML, like changing the HTML element, changing the style, changing the content, modifying the element, the HTML element. Because once your web page loads, the browser creates a document object model for it, and the document is replete with methods and properties that we can use with JavaScript, that we can use to manipulate our HTML element. So this is what I was talking about. So all right, let's proceed. Now, if you want to access any element in an HTML page, you always start with accessing the document object. Very true. Whenever you want to access any element in an HTML page, you always start with accessing the document object. Are you with me? You always start with accessing the document object. Very, very simple. You know, I already taught you object In our last class, I taught you object literal. So, and with that knowledge, you'll be able to understand this, that whenever you want to access any HTML element in a document, you first of all need to access the document object. Why? Because if you look at our previous page, everything is inside of the document. So all of these, they are properties of the document. Can you see? All of these, they are properties of the document. So everything, the HTML, the head tag, the body tag, the meta tag, the title tag, the style, everything that you have here is inside of the document. So it's inside of this, is seated in the document. So for you to be able to access any property, or for you to be able to access any methods in this document, first of all, you need to select the document. You need to select the document, then you now start looking for the element that you want to select. So let us look at selecting DOM elements in JavaScript. So there are different ways to select a DOM element in JavaScript. JavaScript provides us with 6 methods to select an element from the document. Please listen. JavaScript provides 6 methods to select an element from the DOM. From the DOM. And unfortunately, I only use like three of them. Yes, three or four of them, which is just which are query selector, or get element by ID, and I think that's all. Just 3. In fact, I even use query selector and query selector more often than not. I use that a lot. Very, very important. So we are going to look at all of these methods provided by the DOM for us to be able to select any DOM elements in JavaScript. So let us start with that. So we have get element by ID, get element by tag name, get element by, so can you see, get element by ID, search elements by element ID, get elements by tag name, search elements by tag name, get elements by class name, search element by class name, get elements by name, search element by name attributes. While query selector returns the first element that matches the specified selector, while query selector all returns elements that matches the specified selector. Do you get it now? So with query selector and query selector, you can do all these ones that we have here. You can use query selector to select an element that has an ID. So you can use query selector to select an element's tag name. You can use query selector to select an element class name. You can use query selector to also select an element by its name attributes. So this query selector is like one in all of this. So that is why I usually use query selector and query selector all more often than not. So let us look at let's look at these methods in practical. So I'm going to come to my, so this is the element that we want to work with. This is the element that I want to work with. We have a container, and inside of this container we have the header div. Then we have the body div. Inside of the body div, we have h3, a UL. Then we have a div, the class of second part, list of DOM nodes, and all of that. So we are going to be selecting some of these elements, and we are going to be manipulating it in this class, in today's class. All right. So there are a lot of things we are going to look at, such as selecting, getting and setting content of DOM elements in JavaScript. We are going to look at transversing the DOM with JavaScript, different ways of transversing the DOM in JavaScript. Then afterwards, we're going to look at how to create DOM element, how to remove DOM elements, and how to append DOM element. Then in our next class, we're going to look at events, we're going to look at class list, we're going to look at other things, and we'll be able to build a very simple project with it. Then we keep on working with a lot of projects as we continue the class. So, all right, enough of the talking. Let us go straight to the point. So, let's say, for example, you want to select this. Let's say I want to select this now, H1. I want to select this H1 that has the ID of what header text. So I can come here. This is what I'm going to do. So for me to be able to select that H1, like I said, that once your web page loads, the browser creates was a document object model of that web page. So let us, and all the methods and properties that we can use to access the elements in that document, they are also in the document object model. So let us select. So it says that whenever I want to select an element in the document object model, first of all, you need to select what the document. So we say document, then dot, so that we can be able to access all the method or property there. Can you see when I set document dot? Can you see all the methods that we have? Document node, blah 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 blah. A lot of methods that we have: children, child node, child element, blah blah blah. A lot of properties, methods that we can use, events that we can use to manipulate our HTML documents. So let's say we want to select that H1. We want to select this H1 that has an ID of what header text. So we're going to say document dot get elements. Get element by what ID. Can you see how it is? Let me zoom it so I can see it very well. Can you see document dot get element by ID? What does it mean? This get element by ID is a method in document. Like I said here, what is it? It says these are actions to perform on HTML elements, such as adding or deleting or accessing HTML element. So we want to access the H1 element. So we have to use the get element by ID, one of the methods of selecting DOM elements. So and get element by ID, search element by what? Element ID. So here the value of this ID is what? Header text. So I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to copy it, then I'll come here, get element by ID, then a parenthesis, then a quote, and I pass it in. So this is what we have here. Then I can just I can save it inside of a variable. I can call it header. I just say header element like this. Header element. So if I console the log, header elements, you are going to see what we have. So let's check. Can you see? I've selected what? The header element, this particular one here, introduction to DOM manipulation. So before you manipulate an element, before you go ahead to manipulate an HTML, an HTML DOM element, first of all, you have to select. That's the first thing that you need to do. You have to go into the document, select the element that you want to manipulate. Manipulate it such that maybe you want to change the content, maybe you want to even change the H1 to become H2. You want to give it a background color. You want to increase the font size. You can style using JavaScript. So you can see how we have been able to select this using using document dot get element by ID. All right, so let's continue. So let us look at other elements, how we can select other elements. So let's look at H3. Let's look at H3. So let us select this one here. Let's select this H3 using the tag name. So we are going to come here. Or let me call this H1. H1. So why can call this const H3 equals document dot get element by tag name. To get element by tag name, so we are going to use h3. So if we save and we console the log h3, let us see what we have. Can you see h3? It is giving us an HTML collection. If I refresh, it's giving us an HTML collection. Can you see? It's giving us, we have two h3 there. Sorry, we have two h3 in our HTML document. Let me comment this second one, and let's see. If you refresh, it's still giving us what? It's giving us an HTML collection. So now when you are using get element by tag name, it's going to select the element and put it in an array. So this get now. So there's what they call HTML collection and there's what they call node list. We are going to explain the difference between HTML collection and node list in our subsequent class. So this is what we have here. Can you see? It's selecting the h3, but it's putting it in an array. So let me uncomment what we have here. So that's that. So I can also use what do you call it? Let us also select element by class name. Let us select this list, for example. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to say const list or li. I'm going to say document dot get element by class name. Go down to select. So I want to select list. So yeah, in this case, I'm going to console the log. I'm going to console the log li, and let's see what we have. Now, can you see? Look at the list here. So also it's giving us what? An HTML collection. So we have the list, the three lists inside of what? The array. So this is the list that he actually selected, this particular one, the code, XML, and all those things. So this is how to select with JavaScript. So can you see? I only now for this case I say get element by class name. So it's just going to select the element that has this class of list. That has this class of what? List. So it's going to select the element that has the class of list. That's the class of list, and that is what we have here. We are saying that I want you to go to the HTML element and go and select the HTML element that has this class. So that is what it's going to do, and that is what we have here. So it's selecting the three list and it's putting it inside of an array. So that's that. And the next one is so we are going to look at get element by, we want to look at query selector. I think we have looked at this. We'll look at get element by name in a later, maybe when we are working with form and we give the form the input a name attribute, so we can use that. But let's look at query selector and let's see the power of query selector. So let's say now query selector, the way query selector works is quite fantastic. Actually, you can use query selector to select an element that has an ID. You can use query selector to select an element that has a tag name, and also you can use query selector to select an element that has what they call it now, a class name, and even also a name attribute. So let us look at query selector. Let's look at query selector. So yeah, I'm just going to select. I'm going to select this H1 with query selector. So let me call this. I can call this const. Let me just call this header. Let's say header 1. Yeah, header 1. You can do document dot query query selector. Now, the fantastic aspect of this query selector is that this query selector is very robust. Is very powerful, more powerful than other methods that we use to select HTML elements. Now, this query selector, if we want to select an HTML element that has an ID value, if we want to use query selector to select that element, this is what we are going to do. Is we are going to have a quote, then a hash sign, then the value of what the value of the ID. So this means that you are telling the query selector that I want to select the HTML element that has this ID value. Because if you just put something like this and you save, it makes no sense actually. The reason why we did it for get element by ID, because by the name is only getting an element whose ID value is equals to this. But for query selector is different from get element by ID. So we have to specify it. We have to specify that, okay, this value here is actually an ID. So you have to specify the ID. So the symbol for ID is what? The hash symbol. So if you console the log header 1 now, and let us see what we have. Can you see null? It says empty, null. So null. So, but if we put hash now and we save, look at it selecting what? The element. Fantastic. Selected the element. So whenever you are using query selector to select, if you are using query selector to select an element that has an ID value, you first of all need to pass in the ID symbol, then the ID value. Make sure that there's no space between the symbol and the value, because if you do something like this, it's not going to work. Can you see? Fail to execute query selector on document, hash, and header is not a valid word selector. It is not what? A valid selector. So this selector actually works like CSS selector. Are you with me? This query selector works like CSS selector. So if you are conversant with CSS, you should understand what I'm talking about. Whenever you want to select an element that has an ID in CSS, first of all, use to select an element that has an ID, you need what? The hash, then the value of that ID. You have to combine them together. There should not be space in between. That is how we also do it for query selector. The same thing to applicable for class. If you want to select an element that has a class name in CSS, you have what? You need the period symbol, the period symbol and the value of the class. Did you get it now? It's as simple as that. So let us bring this together. So please, so that you don't make this mistake, because a lot of students usually make this kind of mistake where they want to select an HTML element that has a class name or an ID name, and they want to use query selector. So they are now separating the symbols and the values with separating them or spacing them out. So you don't have to space them, it has to be together. You have to marry them together. You get it now? So we are going to have something like this. So let us look at other aspects. Let's look at this H3 here. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy this and duplicate it here. And I'm going to say header 3. I'm going to say header 3. So here, I'm selecting it by its tag name. Since you are selecting it by its tag name, you just put H3 here like this. Simple. And let us console the log. Let's console the log header 3 and let us see what we have. Now can you see? Now for query selector, whenever you are selecting from our definition here, it says that query selector returns the first element that matches the specified selector. Please listen. Take note of what I'm trying to explain now. It says query selector returns the first element that matches the specified selector, which simply means that if in this case now we have we have two H3 and we are trying to use query selector to select the two H3. What it does is it's just going to select the first element of the H3, not the two combined. So do you get it? So if you want to if you want to select the two H3, then you use what? Query selector all. So it returns all the elements that matches the specified selector. So in this case, let me comment this one or duplicate it and comment it. So here in this case, I'm going to use what? Query selector all. So it means that I want you to select all the H3 elements. And look at what we have. Select all the H3 elements. Look at what can you see? It's giving us a node list of this H3. So can you see HTML collection and node list? So please, I'm going to explain that. You can even go ahead to read more on that after this class. So now I'm taking my time to explain DOM because the entry point to manipulating a document object is the selection of the HTML element. So I'm taking my time to explain how to select HTML element with the different method that's been provided for us by DOM. So please take note. So I can also select the list too. So I can come here, can do something like const list and equals document dot query selector, and in this case now I'm selecting this list. Now you know this list is a class name, so if I'm to select it in query selector, I'm going to use what? The period symbol and what? List. So the reason I'm not using the period symbol in class name because that is actually the method, the name of my class name, so I don't need to put dot again. So do you get now? I don't need to put dot on that, but for query selector I have to specify that okay, it is a class value, a class name that I actually want to select. So can you see? And if I console the log, list, console the log list, for example, and I save, look at what we have. It's just going to select the first list for me. Can you see? Called DOM. It's going to select the first list for me, but I want to be able to select all the lists that has that class name. I want to select all the lists that has that class name. So you already know what we are going to do. So what are we going to do? We are going to add what? All to it. So if you save now, we are going to have this. So we have 3 lists here now. It's giving us a node list. So you can see how powerful query selector is. So I use query selector more often than not whenever I'm selecting an HTML element from the DOM. It's as simple as that. So, and also one of the powerful thing in what they call it now one of the powerful thing with query selector is that now in this case, let's say I want to select this H3. I want to select only this H3. For me to do that, see, this query selector works like CSS, honestly, because in CSS, if I want to only select this H3 in such a way that it will not affect this one here, because in CSS, whenever I want to select an element, there are different types of selector in CSS. We have the element selector, the type selector. So the element selector is going to affect all the elements in your HTML document. So if you only want to select a particular element and you want to give it a particular styling, and you know that element also has an occurrence in other part of your HTML document, what you're going to do is you are going to select, let's say in this case now I want to select this H3. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the body. I'm going to select the body. After the body, then I will select the H3. So it means that I am only selecting the H3 that is inside of the body div, inside of the body element. So do you get it now? So in that way, I won't select this one. So I can even use that. I can do that with query selector. So let's say I want to select H3 now, for example. Let me do this. I can say const. How am I going to call this now? Or there's no need for, let me just say console.log. There's no need for me to save it in the variable. I can just do document dot query selector. So in this case, you need your string, that's your quote. Then dot, you need body, that is the entry point. So you are selecting the H3 that is inside of body. Then you say dot body, then space, then H3. You know this kind of selector in in CSS. It is called descendant selector. So you can even use descendant selector here to any kind of selector that you use in CSS. You can use it in query selector. Can you see? If I save it now, let us see what we have. It's only selecting this one, different parts of DOM. Why? Very simple. Can you see how powerful it is? So please take your time to watch this particular video over and over again, because this is the entry point to DOM manipulation. It's very, very, very important. Very, very, very important. All right. So I haven't said that. So let us look at other aspects. So I've explained how to select elements from the DOM. So let us look at getting and setting the content of DOM elements in JavaScript. Getting and setting DOM elements in JavaScript. So in this case, let's say in this case, DOM is an interface that allows developers to interact. So let me make this part strong. So I can just cut this part. Let me cut this part. Sorry. And I paste it here. So let's save. Let's see how it looks like on our web page. So you can see this part is strong now. So now let us let us look at how to get and set content of DOM elements. So we have three ways of setting or getting content of DOM elements. So we have inner HTML, we have inner text, and we have text content. Inner HTML, inner text, and what? Text content. So in this case, what we have here is just selecting the element, and we are consoling the login all the elements. Can you see? So let's say, for example, I want to get the content. Let's say I want to get the content of this paragraph, for example. I want to get the content of this paragraph. So I'm going to come here, I'm going to select this, I'm going to call it const para then equals document dot query selector. You can use query selector, you can use get element by ID. So what I want to do is this. I want to first of all select this header here, then go straight to what? To the paragraph. Very simple. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say, so since the div has the class of header, so what am I going to do? I'm just going to say dot, then what? Header, then a space, the p tag. If I save that now, console the log. Let us console the log. Let us console the log para and save. Let us see what we have. Can you see? If I open this now, can you see? We are having this. Interesting. So let us look at the text. We want to be able to get the content of that paragraph. So for us to be able to get the content, I can just do para dot text content and all that. I can do para dot let me do something like this. Let me do let para dot inner HTML. Sorry, let para inner HTML equals para dot inner HTML, like this. Then I'm going to do another one. Let para, I'm giving it a variable name, and inner text equals para dot inner text. I think so. Should be inner text like this. Inner text. I think so. Then let para text content be equals to para dot text content. Yes, fantastic. So I'm going to console.log. Para dot this, duplicate this 2 times, then I will do inner text, then here I will do text content. So these are the 3 methods that we can use to get the content of an HTML element after we have selected it. Please take note of that. These are the methods that we use to select HTML element after we have selected the element. It's very, very simple. So in this case, we selected the paragraph using this selector, using the query selector. Then afterwards, this para, so this, what we selected here, we store it or save it in this variable called para. So this para now, we can now access other methods in the para, such as inner HTML, inner text, and all that. So we have to save it in a separate variable. So do you get it? We have to save it in a separate variable. So if we save it now and let us see what we have here, can you see the difference? Can you see the difference between the inner HTML, the inner text, and the text content? Can you see how beautiful it is? So for the inner HTML, now if you notice, I added the strong tag. I added the strong tag because I wanted to explain the difference between inner HTML and other methods of selecting or getting and setting the content of an HTML element. So in this case, now for inner HTML, what it does is it's going to also get the HTML tag here. It's going to get the HTML tag here. In this case now we have a p tag, and inside of p tag we have the strong tag element. So we are expecting that when we use inner HTML, we should be able to only get this content, the text only. But in inner HTML, the case is different. Whenever you are using inner HTML to extract or to get the content of an HTML element, any nested HTML element that is inside of that element will also reflect. So you can see that strong is nested in the p tag. So when we use inner HTML to get the content, we also have the strong tag there. So that is the meaning of inner HTML. So do you get it now? And also for inner text. So this inner text, what it does is you just get the text. It should get the text, and it doesn't format it, and it formats the code. Look at how inner text look like, and look at how text content looks like too. Can you see DOM is an interface that blah 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 blah. Look at how it looks like, just that there's space around it. So you get. All right, so that's that. And we can also, aside from that, so this partner is getting the content, getting the content of the HTML element. We can also set the content of the HTML element. For example, we can set the content of the HTML element. Let's say, for example, I want to set it with this. Let's say I want to set the HTML element with this one here. Let me just copy this. Copy and come here. So in this case, I don't have to manually set it. I can dynamically set simply means to change the content. So I can dynamically change the content of this paragraph in my JavaScript. So instead of doing it like this, I can comment this. So I've shown you how to get the value or the content of an element. So now let me also show you how to, let me just remove this now. I don't need the console.log. Let me also show you how to set the content. So to set the content, you just do para dot what? Let's start with inner HTML. If you do inner HTML, I'll say equals. So in this case, can do So for the inner HTML, let's do something like this. Let me pass this in it. So let us save. Can you see DOM blah 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 coming, hold on. So can you see? So this is what we have here. Introduction to DOM manipulation. Can you see? We have changed the content. We've changed it automatically. So what we just did is para.innerHTML equals, then we change the content like that. So it's as simple as that. Let us see what we have in our elements. Let's come to the header. Let's come to the paragraph. Can you see? This is what we have in the paragraph. And perhaps you can make this part to be strong. That's, you see, the benefit of using inner HTML is that you can make a particular part to be strong. Let's say this part now, let me cut it. You can make it strong. You can say, okay, I want it to be strong. You can just do something like this. Strong. Then strong. And you can opacity. So let's see what we have. Can you see this part now is strong? Can you see this part? So it is this. The strong simply means it's bold now. Can you see? It is bold. So with the help of inner HTML, you can, whenever you want to set the content of an element, you want to set it. That means you want to change the content with another content, and maybe you want to also add some some HTML elements to the content that you want to set. It is better you use what inner HTML. So this strong that we had now, or let me even use, if I use strong and I also use emphasis, let me call this, and I use emphasis too as well. I use emphasis and I paste it inside. Let's see what we have. Can you see it is italicized? So if I come to my header now, this part here, let us see what we have in the paragraph. Can you see that inside of the paragraph? Can you see inside of the paragraph? This inside of the paragraph, we have a strong tag. We have a strong tag like this, and we have this content. Very, 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 very simple. Very, very simple. So I can do string. So we have please hold on. Alright, so we can have this. You can pass in a string, and you can pass in a string. I will concatenate this. Can do. Okay. Let's go back to it. Oh, I'm just experimenting actually. It's not even serious. So just experimenting. So this is what we have. Very simple, and you can see how we are able to change this. So if we try this now with let's say what do you call it now? Para dot inner text. So change it with this equals so let me just take this, let me put it here. So let me comment this so that save. Let me remove. Let me add this. Let's see if it's going to reflect. Let's see if it's going to reflect. We save. Can you see it did not reflect at all? The emphasis and the strong did not reflect. It is because we are not using what? We are not using what they call it. We did not use we will not use inner HTML. So let's just remove it. So this one is actually for text. You can't nest another HTML element to it. You can't nest another HTML element to it. So you can leave it like this. So if you see this one we have, let us go back to the container and then the paragraph. So look at what we have here. Interesting. So that's that. And let us also look at para.text content. Then equals. So let me copy these two and let's see what we are going to get. Let's see what we are going to get. So let me comment this one here. So save. Can you see we are still having the strong? It means that the text content and the inner text does not support you nesting HTML element to it. You get? Does not support that. Does not support that. So if you want to nest an HTML element to an element, it's better you use what? Inner HTML. You use inner HTML. So that is that. I'm going to comment this to so I can go back to the initial what do you call it? Initial content actually. So that's that. Very interesting. Very interesting. So let's proceed. What do we have next? So that's that about getting and setting HTML content in DOM. So we have three: inner HTML, inner text, and text content. So we have looked at two things: selecting HTML DOM element and getting and setting HTML DOM element content. So let us look at another one here. So in this case, let us look at transversing the DOM. This is very important. Transversing the DOM. Transversing the DOM. What exactly does transversing the DOM means? Now, transversing the DOM with JavaScript. This is the act of selecting nodes in the document tree from other nodes. Please take notes. It's very important. This is the act of selecting nodes. Nodes can be element nodes, type attribute nodes, comment nodes, and what again? I've forgotten now. Comment node, attribute node, element node, and text node. Yeah, exactly, text node. So this is the act of selecting nodes in the document tree from other nodes. So we are already familiar with several methods of selecting elements in the DOM tree by their ID, class, tag name, or the name attribute, which I showed you earlier on. So there are other methods that we can use in conjunction with the methods taught earlier to select DOM elements, to navigate the DOM in a more efficient way. So for example, selecting a child element from its parent is easier and more efficient than searching for it in the DOM tree, in the document tree. Once you have selected a given node element in the document tree, you can select its related elements in different ways, such as moving upwards, moving downwards, or sideways in the DOM tree from your selected element. What this is simply trying to say is this: when we select an HTML element from the document object, we want to select other elements that are related to that element. We don't have to go into the document object to select it. That's a long journey. Since we have selected one element, we can, by that element, select other related elements, other elements that is related to that element. let's say in this case, in this index now, let's say in this case, I will select what? Header. I select what they call it now. Let's say I want to select H1. So I select H1. I go into the document, select the H1, and also I want to select the paragraph. In order for me to be able to select the paragraph, I don't have to go to the document again to select the paragraph. Since I've selected H1, and I will know that all these HTML elements that we have here, they are related to each other, whether they are sibling or adjacent to each other, or maybe they are a child of a particular element, or they are parents of a particular element. One way or the other, they are what? They are related to each other. In this case, like how am I going to put it now? They are related to each other in such a way whereby maybe you want to select this P now. First of all, you have selected the H1 and you want to select P. I know that this P is related to what? H1, in the sense that the P tag and H1, they are sibling elements. They are adjacent to each other. Or maybe you want to select the parent now, the header. You know that this H1 is related to the what? To the parent. It's as simple as that. Can you see? So you can see how you can select one element, and through that element you can move up the DOM, or move downwards the DOM, or move sideways the DOM to select other related elements of that element that you selected before. So that is what it means by traversing the DOM, moving from one place to another. That is what it means. So that is traversing DOM, the act of selecting nodes in the DOM tree from another node. Is as simple as that. So do you get it now? So let me read this again. It says, for example, selecting a child element from its parent is easier and more efficient than searching for it in the DOM tree. So once you have selected the parent, you don't have to go and select the child element from the document tree. You can just select the child element from the parent element that you have selected. So that is what it means by what? Traversing. So you are going downwards. From the parents to the child, that's downwards. From the child to the parent, that's upward. Then sideways is sibling element. So there are three ways that we can traverse the DOM. We have the sideways, we have the downwards, and we have what? The upwards. So let us look at the traversing downwards. Let us look at traversing what? Downwards. So there are two methods to traverse downwards. So we have query selector or query selector all. Then we have what? Children. These are two methods provided for us to traverse a DOM, or to select an element downwards, a child or a children element from a parent element. So now let's say in this case, I am going to select, let me select this node list, this particular one here. So I'll come here. So I'll say traversing the DOM. Traversing the DOM. So all this part that I have console.log, I'm just going to comment it. I need my console panel to be fresh, to be clean. Alright, so let's save. Do I want that console? Alright, I think I do. Okay, so traversing the DOM. So let us look at downwards. Traversing downwards. So let's select the node list. Okay, don't do this. Let's make this like this. I think this. Then documents dot query selectors. Let's use query selector. Let's select the class name. So we'll call it node list. That's the class name of this. So let's check it and let's see if we're correct. Can you see node lists? That's what we have here. So in this case, let's say I want to select the first element. So transversing the DOM or transversing downward simply means that you want to select the child element or the children element. That's what it simply means. So they get it now. It is very, very simple. So query selector allows you to select the first child of the parent element, while query selector allows you to select all the children in the parent element. And you can also use children tool as well. Alright, let's see. So here I'm going to say, let me say const, so I'm call this item. That's going to be, oh, there's no need. Let me just okay, let me call it const node list. So I want to select a singular list now. So in selecting node list, I don't have to, this is what it means, transversing the DOM. The UL, that's the parent element of this LI. It has what a class name of node list, and the LIs has what a class name of node list. So instead of going to the document object to go and select the list, I can select the list from the parent element. Since I've selected the parent element, so I can come here and say, okay, I've selected the parent element and I've saved it inside of a variable called node list. So I'll say node list dot query selector. Can you see? So what I want to select? I want to select what? Dot node list, because it's actually a class name. It's actually a class name. So let's see what we have here, if you are correct. Node list. Alright, so console.log node list. So let us see what we have. So can you see I'm having a node list here? Why am I still having this part 3 though? I think I've commented all the console. Okay, I haven't commented this one. So can you see that it's still working? Node list. So this actually helps us to be very efficient. From our definition here, it says that for example, selecting a child element from its parent is easier, can you see, and more efficient than searching for it in the DOM tree. Because what it's going to do is going to come to the document tree. In this case, it's going to come here and say, okay, from the document tree, come to the H1, the HTML element, then come to the body and start searching for list that has the class of node list. But no, you can see that's a long process. That will not make our code to be efficient and easier. So what we do is just to select the element from its parent element. So you get now. So that is what it means by transversing downward. When you want to select a child or a children element from its parent element, simply means that you are going downwards. So that's transversing. So that's what it means. So we are able to select the first element. That is the first element. That means this first one here. We're able to select this first one from the parent element using the query selector. So first of all, we selected the parent element. Then from the parent element, we search for the first child of the parent element, and this is what we have here. Sorry, this is what we have here. So the first element is this. So you can see it's been highlighted here. So if I hover on it, you see the highlighted. So that is what it means. So, and I told you that query selector only selects the first element that matches a particular selector. So if you want to select all the elements, for example, const, let me say node children. let me just say node list children to be more specific. Node list children can just do something like this. Node lists, that's node lists dot query selector all, and I can pass in the node lists. So it's going to select all the node lists that I have here. So I can just change this with the node list children. Or let me duplicate this, change it to node list children, and let's see what we have. Can you see it's selecting all the node lists that we have? And there's also another method that we can use. So we can also use, let me comment this. We can also use I don't have to save that in a variable. I've exhausted variable names right now, so I can just do node list, that's node list dot children. So it's going to select all the children in the parent element. So we are selecting the parent element. They want to get all the children from the parent element. So let us see what we have here. Can you see we are still having this here? So now the difference between query selector all and children is that, can you see, the all is going to give you back the elements in an array, but it's just that this is a node list for query selector all, while for children is what, an HTML collection. So that's that about transversing downwards. So let us look at transversing. Let's see now. Let's look at transversing sideways. So let us look at sideways then. So there are two methods to transverse sideways. So we have next element sibling and we have previous element sibling. So let us see what we have here. So in this case, I'm going to, which one am I going to use? I'm going to use this one. Or should I use that? Alright, let me use this H3. So this H3 is a sibling of this UL and also a sibling of this D that we have here. It's a sibling of this D that we have here. So we have three children inside of what? The body tag. So we want to select sideways, meaning we want to select by the children element. We want to select sideways. We want to select the adjacent element of the adjacent elements in the container. So let's see. So I'm going to select the body tag. I want to select this H3 that is inside of this body tag here. So I'll come, I think I've selected it before. Or is it? What did I? Yes. Okay, I think I did not select it. Not okay. I think I did do this one here. So I'm just going to copy this. Probably I'm going to put it in the another variable. In a variable, I'll call this const. Let's call this body h3 header. Let's do it like this. So now I'm selecting this. So I want to get the next sibling of this h3. So in order for me to do that, so this is called transversing sideways. This is called transversing sideways. So here I'm going to do, so here is going to be dot next element sibling, like this. Next element sibling. So let me just put this in the const next. Let me do next header. So let me save this. So if I console the log next header, for example, Let's see what we have here. And it's giving me the UL. And you see, it's giving me what? The UL. So what I did is I selected the H3. Then afterwards, I transversed sideways by selecting the next element sibling. If I do previous element sibling, since this one doesn't have an element, since this H3 doesn't have an element before it, it's going to return null to us. So if I do something like previous element sibling, say previous element sibling, let's see what we have. It's giving us null because there's no previous element. There's no element before this H3. So do you get it now? So let me So why for this header too, I can get the next sibling of this header. I can get the next sibling of this one here. Since we selected the H3 and we're able to get the next sibling of H3, which is this UL. I can also get the next sibling of this UL. So you can see the way we are moving from one element to another element just by selecting one element from the document object. So I can come here, since the next header, since the variable next header is what we use to store this. So I'm going to do another one, next sibling, and I'm going to save. So it's going to give me that div. And you see, it's giving me the div. So you can see how we can move from one element to another element. Let me duplicate this and call this next sibling. So can you see, this is what we mean. This is what I mean by what? Transversing the DOM sideways. So we have looked at transversing the DOM downwards. So now we have also looked at transversing the DOM downwards. So from here, I can even do something. I can duplicate this. I can say, okay, for the next header, I want the previous element sibling. You can see it's going to give us back that H3. Can you see? First of all, we selected the H3. From the H3, we're able to move to the next sibling, which is this one here. Then this one, from this one, we're able to move to this one here. Then while from this one, we're able to move towards H3. So can you see how fantastic it is and efficient and easier for us to move from one element to another element? So this is what I mean by what? Transversing what? The DOM. It is very, very important. It's very, very powerful. So we are still in the introduction of document object model. So let us look at transversing upwards. Transversing upwards. So it simply means getting the parent element from a child element. So that is what it means, transversing upward. So it means getting the parent element from a child element. So in this case, there are two methods that we can use to transverse upward. We have the parent element and we have the closest. We have the parent element and we have what? The closest. The parent element and what? The closest. So let us go straight in. So in this case, let's say I want to select, let me select this node list. I think I have it selected here. Yes, very good. So this node list. So I'm going to come here, I can say const parent node list is going to be node list dot parent elements. So I'm just going to console.log parent node list. So if we save, let us see what we have. So it's giving us what? The UL of what? Node list. So can you see? And also, if I want to get from this child element now, I want to get, I want to get the grandparent of this child element. So you know the grandparent of this child element is this div here, because this UL is inside of this div. So you have to understand hierarchy. So it's very, very important. this li is living inside of this ul. It's living directly inside of this ul. So this makes it what is parent element. Why it is also living inside of this container called second part, but not living directly, but living is not living directly in it. So this is like this the second parent of this element. So this is like the grandparent of this element. So you should understand this. So for us to be able to get the grandparent of a child element, what are we going to do? Is to simply do something like this. I can do something like let's do something like const grandparent node list. So it's going to be node list dot parent element. So from the parent element, you're also going to do what dot parent what element. So simple. Then if you console the log grandparent, for example, and let us see what we have. Can you see it's giving us this second part here? Why? Because the grandparent of this one here is this one. So when we apply the parent element, it gives us this. So when we apply the parent element to this, it gives us this. So you get it now. So from this li, we can get the grandparent of the li. It's as simple just by nesting parent element, parent element. But we also have a better way of doing this, which is using what? Closest. Closest is very, very important. Sorry, this my spelling is not correct. It's supposed to be closest, not this. So please, sorry about that. So let us look at the closest. The closest. Now, for the parent element, it is great. The parent element is great for selecting one level upward. It is very fantastic. When you want to select a parent element, just one, you are moving one level upward. You know, the one we just did, we moved like 2 levels to be able to get the grandparent. And we can't be nesting, or we can't be concatenating, we can't be chaining parent elements to itself by using dot parent element. We can use what we call closest. So parent element is great for selecting one level upward. So, but for us to be able to find an element that can be multiple level above the current element, then we can use what? The closest. So what it simply means is this: for us to be able to find for us to be able to find an element that can be a multiple levels above the current element, then we'll use what? Closest. So in this case now, we want to move to this second part, and this second part is like 2 levels above this li, this node list, or probably maybe we want to move to the container. Do you get now? We want to move to, no, not the container. I want to move to the body, and you know the body has 3 children, this one, and this one. That's the H3, the UL, and this one here. So we want to move 3 levels up. So from this li, we want to move 3 levels up from the li. So first of all, move to the UL, from the UL to what? To the second part, this one here, then towards the body. So we can't be doing dot parent element. No. So there's a method for that, which is what called closest. So it is used to find an element that can be multiple levels above the current element. So they get it now. So closest allows us to select the closest ancestor element that matches a selector. That what matches a selector. So in this case, this is what I'm going to do. Instead of doing something like this, let me just comment this one. So instead of doing something like this, I can just do something like this. I can say, what is it? Node list. I don't need to save it in a variable. I can do node list dot closest. So what you are trying to look for the closest. So you pass in a string. So what do you want? You want to get the second part. That second part. You know the second part is a class name. So in order for us to, we have to specify it here, dot second part. So this one is just like query selector too. So that second part. So if we save now, let us see what we have. Simple. It's going to give us this without doing all this dot and all that. So if we want to get the body, this one here, which is the great grandparent. This is the parent, the grandparent, and this is the great grandparent, like an ancestor. Can you see what we have here? If I refresh, this is what we have. Beautiful. So this is giving us all of this. And if I also want to get the container of all the elements, I can do dot container. I think that's what I save it as. Dot container. Yeah. So all of this. So if we come here, can you see what we have here? So you can see that we can select we can select elements, or we can find elements that can be multiple levels above the current element. Multiple levels above the current element. So this one is one level above the li. This div that has a class of second part is 2 levels above the li. This li here. While the body element is this div with a class of body is what? 3 levels above this, the li. While this is what? 4 levels above it. So can you see? Very, very, very interesting. So it's simple. It's simple. It is very, very simple. Very, very simple. So I think that's all about transversing the DOM. That is all about transversing the DOM. I'm going to make sure that this video is not going to be long, please. And in fact, we need to even end it now. So by next class, we're going to look at how to create elements with JavaScript, how to style elements with JavaScript using DOM and JavaScript, how to remove elements, and how to append elements. Then afterwards, we're going to build a very simple project. And we keep on building project. So that's all. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please, if there's any part you don't understand, try and watch the video over and over again. And also, you can chat me up if there's anything that is creating confusion for you. All right. So we meet again. So until then, do have a lovely day. Bye.